So today we're doing portraiture again. Basically, we're going to be drawing people and faces. We're going to start with a very simple 3/4 view. So here I have a model of how a head would look like. And we're going to do one that's tilted this way. So not up front, it'll be tilted to the side. Yes. And for your materials, you just need paper and pencil and your sketchbook. I do have a picture, but we don't have to make it look exactly like this person. Let me know if you can see this, or if it needs to move higher or lower or whatever. Hello, hello, welcome in. So we're doing portraits today. We're going to start off with our pencil and basically our framework for the head. And if you've drawn faces before, you already know that there are tons of different formats. Yeah, go take a picture as well. There are tons of different ways you can draw a face. But today we're just going to draw the basic structure and then add features using just our eyeballs. There is no framework that we're going to use today. So go ahead and take your pictures and we're going to get started. All right, first I'm going to start with a circle. And if you struggle with drawing a circle, you can use maybe something to trace, but then again, it does not need to be exact. Just swing your arm around a couple of times. Let me make that a little bit darker. It does not need to be perfect. So draw a circle. And try to make your drawing pretty big. Not too big, but just enough so that, it's about the size of your hand or something. When it becomes too small, when your drawing is too small, you're going to find it difficult to add details later, such as the eyes or the nose, because our pencil can only get so thin. So it's good to start with a medium-sized portrait. Okay, now we're going to set the center of the face, or the center of the circle. First, I'm going to do a horizontal line. This line is going to be where most of the brow structures are going to be. Okay, and then now you would set the center of the circle. So find that middle point and give yourself a little reference mark. Find the middle. And because this person's face is tilted more to our left, we need to draw another line that's more to the left. So this will be where the face kind of starts. And you want to drag it down a little bit. Right now, I'm just marking where the bottom of that chin would be. So what's happening here is we are drawing this line. It's going across down the middle. All right, now let's draw the side planes of the face. The head is not perfectly round. It's not like a perfect ball. There's actually a plane on the side here. So that means when you feel the temple, this part is relatively flat. So we're going to cut a little bit for showing the side of the face. I'm just drawing kind of like a moon shape, just to roughly show where that head is starting to change. And down in the middle of this plane that we just cut out. So if you look at this model here, that's basically what's happening here. There's a flat surface. And now you're going to show where that half of the head is. So imagine this is the head and it's turned this way. So now you see the side of the face. You're going to draw a line down the middle to show yourself where the ear is going to be. Just roughly draw in the ear. It'll take up half, roughly, that side of the face. So it starts at the top line, and then it would end somewhere around the middle between this area. Once you're done with the ear, you're going to move on to the eyes and the front of the face. So the next thing that I'm going to carve in is essentially these pockets or sockets for the eyes. And you want to think of everything on the face as a shape. Don't worry too much about the details, just worry about the general shape. So simplify the face. It's really important that we simplify. So I'm just showing the curve of the eyebrow here, this brow ridge. And then I'm going to do another circle for that. Yeah, before you even draw the features, it's important to get a feeling for the general volume of the face, the shapes. So that's why I'm really simplifying it down to simple geometric shapes like circles, triangles, etc. Okay, and then now I'm going to carve out the side of the face, which is this, the edge. The chin is not as sharp as you would think it would be. It's actually quite blunt. So you can almost imagine a flat line running across here. And then bring that up to the jaw. So the jaw does have a slight curve to it. So yeah, just draw in the outline of the face. And then now, before we move on to the face, we also need to draw the neck and general curve of the shoulders. So over here, it starts a little bit in the middle of the ear, actually, that line of the neck. So it doesn't start here. A lot of people, when they first draw the neck, they'll cut it directly, like down here. But there's actually more volume towards the back. And also because of how this person is sitting, it'll appear a little bit further behind. So just draw roughly where that neck is going to be. And it's also important to note that the chin is actually below where the neck ends. So we're going to cut the neck off here and just draw a general slope for where the shoulders are going. This person sits like me. I'm also slouching right now. Let me get up and not slouch. Okay, now that we have the approximate shape of the back, we can move to the face. So in the face, let's draw the general elements. We have the approximate size of the eyes, nose, and mouth. So those are the most critical features. And then we add everything around them. So let's start with the eyes. I'm not drawing the shape yet. I'm just drawing the area where I want it to be. So it's going to start looking like a robot, but that's okay. We'll start adding things in later. You might see this better on camera as well, but this left eye is a little too high. They're actually almost parallel, the tops of these ones. Going to lower it a little bit. And now for the nose. Almost always the nose ends halfway. So you can almost compare from this line down here, and it'll cut somewhere in the middle. Of course, there are variations. Some people's noses land a little bit lower or higher. But now I'm going to draw in the general shape of the nose. So this person has quite a high nose bridge. And it's always helpful if even when you're doing the rough sketch, of all these simple shapes and elements, you can start to reference. So for example, I'm figuring out where the nose ends. So how far does this nose come out? And you can almost compare it to the eye or to the rest of the structures on the face. So imagine if you drew a line. Whoops. Imagine if you drew a line going straight down. Where would that edge of the nose hit? So we know that it's kind of cutting into the eye. Same here, it's cutting into the eye and it's kind of landing a little bit outside here. So this one checks out. And also it doesn't have to be exact. Just a rough estimate of where things are going to be. And the same with the other edge of the nose. If you drew a line all the way up to, oh, you can't see that one. It would just hit the corner of the eye. So it doesn't actually go into the eye, but sits right on the edge of that cornea, not cornea, the tear duct. So something like that. And even across for the specific photograph, you can find the tip of the nose. So that's where usually the highlight is. You see this tiny little white dot. If you drag a line all the way across, it would hit the bottom of the ear. So these things on the face will be relative to each other. And you can use different elements to find the placement of others. That's not what I want to do. All right, and now let's draw the mouth. So the mouth is also about a little bit halfway between the nose and the chin. However, some people's mouths are higher up or lower up, and for this person, it's a little bit higher. If you can't tell, you can almost measure with something, but as you keep drawing, you will notice these things very quickly. So let's draw just a line. It kind of goes down, doesn't it? Okay, at this point, I'm going to use a little bit of technology. So I'm actually going to take a photo. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a photo of my drawing. And you'll see here in a second what that does. So let me open it. Okay, so here we have a photo of the drawing. It's a little bit tilted on camera. That's okay. So I do this because it helps me spot mistakes early on in my drawing. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip the drawing around so that we see something that our eyes are not used to. You can do this in a mirror as well. If you flip your drawing, go to a mirror and then flip it around, you can notice things. So far, I think nothing's too off. Usually my eyes would be really slanted, but so far it's okay. So this is just checking for huge areas of awkwardness. Okay, and then now we're back to this picture. Oh, now it's flipped around. Let's flip that back. Okay, we're back in business. However, now that I'm looking at it, I think for mine, the top of the head needs to be a little bit higher, like this. And then the face could be cut in just a little bit. Like that. Okay, and now we can get into the parts of the face. Let me zoom in for you guys here. Okay, I'm going to start with the top and work down to the bottom. So eyebrows. This is actually not the brow line. I did say that earlier, but this is just where the temple is. So the forehead. This line is where the brows should start. They actually sit quite low in terms of the whole face. So this person's eyebrows, they kind of start on the edge and then curve their way in. They don't make it all the way down, but they make it about halfway of that left eye. So just roughly sketch here. You can start to press harder with your pencil. And then do the same, kind of figure out where the eyebrows start. And the reason we're not using any particular method or structure, there's always some sort of construction lines going on. We're not using too many of those because it's always good to just draw from observation and let the pieces put themselves on the paper. I'm going to start erasing just a couple of these lines so it doesn't become too distracting and confusing. Okay, and I'm going to start drawing the eyes. They'll sit a little bit lower in this circle. just the general curved eye, and it's not. Sometimes you might feel like you should draw it like that, just like a simple arch, and that's okay. But remember, when the head is tilted in this angle, our perspective warps how we see that eye. So instead of just drawing a direct curve, you might also want to shift the curve over so that the the point of the curve kind of tilts to the left. So instead of drawing a perfect rainbow arch, you can change the point of the arch to fit the direction that the face is turning. It's almost like you're pushing this over. Right back to the face. The second eye starts right below the eyebrows. And dips down in the same area as well. And I'm kind of dividing this eye into, if you're struggling with drawing the eyes, let's zoom in a little bit. What I'm basically drawing is not one simple curve, not like that. I'm finding where to divide this line. So essentially, I'm starting at the tear duct, and then let's say there's a line there, and then I see just a really simple line on the outside, and to connect it, there's another line. So technically, I've added 3 lines for the top of the eye. And for the bottom, it goes in, out, and again to wrap around the eyeball. So also one, two, 3 lines. And you don't have to draw the lines, it just helps you find the angles. For the nose, I'm actually going to move my nose a little bit more to the left, just because of how the eyes are sitting now. I'm just going to shift that corner roughly over here. And I'm just going to draw a small little circle to show that highlight. And this is where the nose is most sticking out. Just like that. Might actually be a little bit more to the left. Here we go. And then we're just going to wrap the bottom of the nose around it. Let's also add the irises for the eye. So that's where she's looking. Just make sure that both of them are looking in the same direction. Looking at the same thing. And now onto the mouth. I'm going to move the line for the mouth a little bit further up, just almost a little bit by like a millimeter. And then I will start to mark out the middle. I already did that, and the upper and lower lines of the lips. So over here, there's a like a triangle shape connecting to the nose. You can use this to your advantage, and it kind of dips here. And notice how the middle of the mouth is actually not in the middle of the line. It's all shifted over to the left because of the angle. So that's the bow of the mouth. And then I'm just going to roughly mark in the bottom. The corner of her lips also go down a little bit. Not that much, but you can just so slightly. It goes up and then it goes down a little bit. So darken the edge, like just make the corners a little bit darker. And just like that. I'm just erasing some of these lines because we won't be needing them anymore. And also just to clean up the paper. Just using a brush to dust off all the eraser shreds. Okay, now that the lines are gone, or the construction lines, sorry, you can kind of better see where things are supposed to land. So for example, I'm already noticing that I drew the eyebrows a little bit too far in. So I'm just going to erase this bit and actually bring the outer edge upwards. Like that. And this person has quite a deep, like a really high nose. So that's why you see a lot of shadows going on this side. Okay, and then now you can start adding the hair. When you draw hair, try not to think of them as individual strands. So a lot of times we'll start sketching and drawing so many lines. Kind of want to think of the hair also as in shapes. Think in different clumps or groups of hair that are going in the same direction. So I'm going to start drawing the hairline. So that's where the hair starts. It's roughly about here. And for hair, you really want to show the direction of where the hair is going. So it's all tied back. That means you can almost draw like lines fanning around, wrapping around the curvature of the head. So especially for these lower locks, it goes down a little bit here from the temple and then wraps around the back where you can't see anymore. So it goes up and then swoops down and wraps around the head. And at this point, you might already notice that we actually do need to make, well, I need to make the head a little bit taller. Because hair also has a bit of volume. Same here, you can see where the hair starts to part as opposed to individual strands. And this little piece, the side, it goes up and then behind the ear. So now you have a nice little S-curve going on here. So just keep thinking of all these different parts as geometric and organic shapes. There seems to be a ponytail behind. So draw that as well, just something like that. So just gonna quickly draw in the rough outline of the collar of the shirt. then the collarbones. I'm just sitting there. Okay, now it's time for, before we start to add the details, it's a good time to start looking for discrepancies. So for example, I feel like my ear is a little bit too high in comparison to the eyes. Notice how mine is way above the ear. Then in the photo, it almost lines up perfectly. So I'm just going to cut the top of that ear a little bit lower just to match the eyes. And then also bring it lower. Now I'm just drawing the inside of the ear as well. And there's only really two main parts. So this part where it's going into the ear, draw that, break it down into two parts. And then there's also the outer lobe, which is really just the skin wrapping around the edge. Does not have to be completely like the picture. Then now I'm going to slightly fix the curve of the jaw as well as the left side of the face. If you look at this back and forth, you can kind of see that my drawing is tilting inwards a little bit, which is okay, but I do want to try and make it look more like the photograph just for today. So this chin is actually, I need to move that inwards a little bit. And the jaw stays relatively the same. Goes in, and then on this side, kind of looks like that. And then I'm going to move the edge of this eye a little bit over. So moving this eye, just moving it over a little bit. Okay, and I think, just kidding, I've just noticed that I feel like the eyebrow needs to be just a little bit higher. As you can see, I fix a lot as I'm going, and that's why I don't really use guidelines. Like all the lines and, this is the center of the face and this is how wide the eyes are supposed to be. I used to do that, but now because I fix so many things all the time, the guidelines almost become useless because I keep erasing them. And drawing without guidelines is also good because then you can also improve how you see it, observe the picture. It's really helpful if you want to draw using a reference. Okay, now I'm going to start cleaning up my different lines and start erasing a couple of these darker areas. If you have a sharpener, now would be a good time to sharpen your pencil, make it sharp again, so you can really get those details. I don't have one, so I'm actually going to use a mechanical pencil. Okay, using my eraser and now pretend sharp pencil, which is just a mechanical pencil, I'm going to start cleaning up the eyes. So right now they're kind of just fuzzy shapes. I'm gonna clean those edges up. So I'm just going to lightly erase. Not all of it, but you want to kind of leave a little of that original sketch in there. Then I'm going to go back in and really start to carve out that eye. And don't forget to draw the secondary fold. So that's where the skin of the eye starts to fold inwards, and you get that second line, also called the double eyelid. At this point, you can also start to color or shade. So not just lines, you can start to shade a little bit. So over here, so you've added some hatch marks. You can shade using a blender, or you can just do a couple of different like little parallel lines if you'd like. There's also that one little dot for the highlight. And I'm just going to fill in that iris over there. So once you finish the eye, oh, and don't forget that the eye whites are actually not, like if it looks too startled, if your picture is starting to look almost scared, that's because there's too much white at the top of the eye. So for example, if your eye is starting to look a little bit like this, it almost looks scared. So that means just lower the upper lid, bring it down, and then look less frightened. Yeah, so if you have too much white space on the top, that makes the eye look a little bit scared or awkward at times. So you kind of want the top of the iris to just be hidden a little bit. Okay, back to the rest of the face. Once you're done with that eye, you can start moving over towards the middle. So everything is almost in a way connected. Right now I'm shading this shadow area. You can almost think of it like just a strip going across. And the eyelid, of course, has its own curve. And then now I'm going to shade on this side as well. So you can think of it as like this is the eyeball, right? That's the iris. And the eyelids are wrapping around this shape. So when the light comes in from the corner, it's going to cast a little bit of a shadow on the outside of that. So that's essentially what's happening here in this little pocket. Going to shade just a little bit. And it stops about halfway. So this part, there's really not much shadow or shading. You can kind of bring it in over here, but that's just about as far as it gets. And the corner of this shadow is quite dark. So in here, in the corner of the eye, just darken that up a little bit. And that starts to get light again because of the nose. Okay, now I'm going to start detailing this eye on the right here. Once again, I'm just lightly erasing, still keeping some of those sketch lines. I'm just going to go in with my thin pencil. So I've drawn in that double eyelid on the top. And just slowly carve in the bottom of the eye. and lightly sketch in the iris as well. It's not a perfect circle, but it's more of a tall circle, almost like an oval. Then I'm going to draw that highlight and shade in the rest. Now I'm going to add some shading to the lips because if you turn this into a black and white photo, and I'll do that right now actually. When you turn it into black and white, you can see that the lips are a little bit darker than everything else. Just because of that red. It's darker than the rest of the skin. So I'm actually going to just keep it at this saturation and see how it works out. So when you turn a photo into black and white, it's helpful when you do sketching or practicing, but it's also good to keep it in color sometimes. The only problem with keeping it in color is that it's harder to see values sometimes. But a little bit of training is not that bad. So let's continue with our shading. So I'm just going to lightly color in the lips. You don't want to like do an outline that might end up looking a little too cartoonish. If you want to do an outline, by all means, go ahead. But I'm trying to do more of a semi-realistic portrait. So we have some realistic proportions, and then maybe our own stylistic choices. So I'm just hatching. And do the same for the bottom lip. And if you darken the corners of a mouth, so for example, the corners, left, right, and also a little bit in the middle, it helps it look a little bit more natural. So not shade all over it, but just make that line just a little bit darker. So it almost feels like we're getting sucked into that little vertice over there. So it's like it's like a pocket. Now I'm just shading the bottom lip. Goes back up, and on this side, I'm going to fill it out a little bit more. Notice how I'm making this side just a little bit darker when I'm shading it because of the light source. Once again, the face is tilted in the direction, so that means some elements of face will look darker just to help create the impression that, they are tilting this way. And so this is all very light hatching, and I used up and down for this. And now let's figure out how to shade the rest of the face. So really, just for this portrait, we're going to focus on the shadows on this side. As you can see, there's a soft one here on the neck. There's also this one, just on the corner of that chin, as well as over here on top of the mouth, and this one casted by the nose. So there are a couple of groups of shadows that we need to pay attention to. There's also a soft one that's just along the forehead. So that's everything on the left side. There are also shadows on the right side because the light is not all the way from the right. It's more coming in like this angle. So there's also shadow over here and just around the face and under this jawline structure. We'll just work around the face, and then if we see a shadow, we'll add it. So I usually start around the top and work my way around. There's no true order. For me, because I'm right-handed, I usually do top left and then bottom right, so my hand does not smudge my drawing. With my pencil now, I'm going to add a little bit of soft shading. I'm stopping every so often. Just look back and check if I'm going too far or if I need to make it darker, lighter. Do I need to erase or anything like that? So just take your time. Remember to step back and take a look. And you're really looking for those subtle changes. This might be a bit hard to see on camera, but if I zoom in here, let's look at the forehead a little bit. The shadow is not perfectly going to be parallel. It's actually more like this. Because the brow bone in the skeleton, the brow bone sticks out. So when the light hits, you can actually kind of tell that this part is lighter. If I sketch it out, you might be able to see it better. So that's why on my drawing, I've kept this part relatively lighter. But these are just really subtle changes. It won't make too much of a difference. But if you want that detail in there, then you would include it. So just keep shading. And over here on the corner of the eye, just a little bit to show that indent. Then I'm going to wrap around the side of the face. And most of this is actually darker than the entire face. So I'm doing one round entirely. I'm darkening up this whole side of the face to show a general shadow. And it's okay if it looks a little bit patchy right now because we're going to go in and smooth things out. Okay, don't worry about the chin right now. We're going to go back up and just darken these areas of interest. So this shadow of the nose, as well as the shadow of the mouth, and then also the chin. So really three main areas. So darkest up here, and then when we get to the bottom, it kind of fades and blends in with the rest of the face. We have the mouth as well. So just lightly add those layers. It's quite dark up here by the nose. And then by the chin, we also have a shadow. So this one over here, and it's kind of like it wraps around the chin like that. So I'm actually going to start underneath the mouth. You see this slight shadow, almost like it's like a pout. Quickly add that in there. And then also on the left side as well. Now going back up to the eye. The eyes also have a very small shadow. It's along the corner over here when it wraps around the bottom eyelid. Notice how it's a little dark here. Just going to add that in our drawing as well. Okay, and now let's move to the right side of the face and start shading in those shadows. So the first one that I see is once again underneath that eye. Just a little bit. It's almost like this is not really a shadow, I would say. It's more of just like the eye bags. So pigmentation in the skin. We can also just think of it as a shadow. Doesn't go too far. And don't worry about making it look like this person's really tired. Because it makes sense. At least in my mind. Going in, I'm gonna add this shadow over here. Maybe they are tired. Who knows? And now I'm just adding a little bit to the nose, as you can see here. Just a little bit of that. There's a little bit of a shadow just on the cheek here because the cheek is it's popping out a little bit. So we need to capture that shadow as well. And it's just a very light one. Don't need to push too hard on your pencil. I'm kind of holding my pencil like this for maximum feathering effect. So my grip is really light. It's very loose. I'm not holding it like tightly, but just lightly, and I'm kind of just tapping with my index finger. Just really lightly shade without any pressure. You can see it's just ever so slightly there. Oh, and don't forget, what this is called, philtrum. There's a little area under the nose, that raised edge. Now we can start shading the far right of the face. So that's just the jaw as well as the temple. So immediately here, I can kind of see a very light shadow of this eye. It's hard to see on the camera, but if you notice, this is the cheekbone, right? The bone that pops out. The gray here is just a little bit lighter than over here. So that means there is a shadow, just soft shadow wrapping around this area. So it starts on the corner of the eye. I'm just lightly hatching, and I'm going to bring it, spread it out, and then bring it up. You see what I mean? Now it's just very, very light and very blended in, almost like it's not there. So it's very hard to see. But yeah, it is there. Now down here, under the cheekbone, we have this shadow just on the side of the face. It starts dark here. As you can see, there is kind of a sharp line. There's that edge. In order to make that edge, I'm going to shade pretty dark, not too dark, and then fuzzy it out as we get closer to the center. And this one continues all the way down to the jaw. It's always darkest around the corners, around the edges, and then it gets lighter as we get further in. There's also a little bit of a shadow over here. It's an interesting one. Not really sure what's happening there, but I'm going to add it anyways. And then there's that. All right. I think we captured all the facial shadows, maybe except the nose. Still thinking about how to do that. The nose is interesting because we do think of it as an extrusion on the face, but you can think of it as this part as the highlight, and everything around it kind of dips inward. So there's a shadow just on the tip of the nose here as it starts to curve into the other side. And then there's also this pocket, just a really light shadow, almost like a triangle sitting on this side of the nose. So feel free to add the nose shadow as well. It really is just like a triangle. Try not to make it too dark, because although there is a shadow on the nose, we want the nose to kind of stick out from the face. So if you make it too dark, it'll start to sink in, because shadows sink and highlights pop. Now let's move on to the ear shadows. After we're done with the ear, we're going to move on to the neck. And then the hair, we can just roughly sketch it. So for the ear, also group the shadows. So you can see there's one main shadow, another one just in the corner over here, where this bit goes up to the top. There's a little corner shadow, and then there's that line of the lobe. So it's not really a shadow, but more of a line. Anyways, let's add the main shadow. It's darkest up here, and then it fades out. So darkest up at the corner, And then you want to fade it out as you come down into the rest of the ear. To be honest, you can even just fake a few shadows and it will look like the ear. As long as you have, you know, the parts making relative sense. You don't want like parts of the flesh cutting off each other or whatever. They all have to run into, they just have to make a little bit of an anatomical sense, but not too important. You could even draw a squiggly and it'll look like an ear. Okay, but you don't need to spend too much time on the ear as it's not really the focus. It's kind of just an external object. But what is important is now we have to match the shading of the face with the rest of the body. So over here we see some shadows on the neck. It's particularly dark around this corner. And we also have a little bit of random shadows sprinkled in throughout due to the structure of the neck. So I'll just start with this main one over here. And then even if you cover the top part of the torso, you can kind of see that the neck and the face are almost the same shade. So you want to achieve the same darkness. Just going with my pencil and roughly adding some shading here and there. So this is once again just the base. Think of the neck as a cylinder, right? So in this model here, you can kind of see it's a really rough one, but this is a cylinder. So think of it as a cylinder and shade it as a cylinder with little bumps here and there. I'm going to match the tone of the skin over here just a little bit. Start light and then work darker. Always, always start light because then you can work up the layers. So now I'm just darkening my shadows. So over here under the chin, we have that little bit of that gap or that crevice. And especially on this side, on the left side, we have this shadow. Same on top of the collarbone. This bone here, there's a little strip of that shadow. Not too noticeable. And very lightly underneath. And then we don't have to worry about the rest. Okay, and the last little bit is really just the top of the head. So that's the hair. And honestly, I just kind of shade wherever. There's no formula to the hair. You can shade it however you want. But one tip is that you can make your pencil marks follow the direction of the hair growth. So I wouldn't be shading downwards right now. I'm just going to go across, following its direction of the hair. Just roughly. They can be straight lines, curved lines, however you want it. Just get some value in there so it doesn't look like there's just empty space. This person's hair is actually quite dark and darker as you get closer to the edges, mostly because of the lighting. They're just really roughly adding it in there. And then you can also notice where there you can see the scalp. That can also be parts where you leave a little bit empty. As you can see, after a couple of pencil marks, you can't really see where the hair is anyways, so you can just very roughly sketch in however you like. Next time we'll probably do one that just focuses on how to draw hair because it can be quite a challenging part of portraits. But generally speaking, hair is quite easy to learn. And then just a couple of hairs on this side. Super roughly. Okay, and then the last part would just be the ponytail. And you can just really simply shade that in. So now you can go downwards because that is how the hair is growing. And as you get close to, notice how I'm kind of outlining the side of that neck. Just to show that the hair is at a different level.
Niche. When you finish?
So, and then now you're almost done. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We are finished. But yeah, you can keep practicing